This is my 12.1 digestion by Amy Fines. So the digestive system goes to the mouth, then to the pharynx and esophagus, down to stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus. So the beginning of the digestive system is the mouth, which is also known as the buccal cavity. So the smell of food triggers the salivary glands in your mouth to secrete saliva, which contains amylase, and this causes your mouth to water, and when you actually start eating, the saliva increases. Once you start chewing and breaking down the food into the pieces small enough to be digested, other mechanisms come into play, and more saliva is produced to begin the process of chemically breaking down the food. And so amylase is an enzyme found in saliva and the pancreatic fluid and also the small intestine, and it converts starch and glucose into simple sugars. So the pharynx and esophagus, which this is the throat. So the pharynx is the portion of the digestive tract that receives the food from your mouth, and then branching off the pharynx is the esophagus, which carries food to the stomach. The swallowing takes place in the pharynx, and then the food enters the esophagus. The esophagus is a muscular tube, and food is pushed through the esophagus and into the stomach by means of a series of contractions called peristalsis. So next it goes into the stomach. The stomach is a hollow organ that holds food while it's mixed with enzymes that continues the process of breaking down food into a usable form. So cells in the lining of the stomach secrete hydrochloric acid and protease enzymes that are responsible for the breakdown. Then, when the contents of the stomach are sufficiently processed and have changed into the consistency of a liquid or paste, they are then released into the small intestine. So protease is an enzyme that is found in the stomach, pancreas and small intestine, and it converts proteins into amino acids. Chyme is also found in the stomach, and it is an acidic fluid which passes from the stomach to the small intestine, and it consists of gastric fluids and partly digestive foods. So next, it doesn't really go to the liver, but the liver and the pancreas and gallbladder are all off it, that all help with the digestive process. So the liver processes so it has multiple functions, but its main function within the digestive system is to process the blood containing the nutrients absorbed from the small intestine. Bile is made in the liver and secreted into the small intestine, which plays an important role in digesting the fat. In addition to the liver is the body's, what they call the chemical factory, and it takes raw materials absorbed by the intestines and makes all the various chemicals that the body needs to function. Liver also detoxifies potentially harmful chemicals which is found in the blood, and it also stimulates the release of the enzyme lipase. So next we've got the kidneys, and the kidneys work with the liver to remove toxic substances from the body. The kidneys process about 200 quarts of blood to sift out about 2 quarts of waste products and extra water. It filters water substances out of your body and balances the levels of salt and water in your body. And the products of waste breakdown travel from your kidneys to the liver via the circulatory system. So next goes the gallbladder. The gallbladder is a storage sac for excess bile. Bile is made in the liver and then travels to the small intestine via the bile duct. If the small intestine doesn't need it, the bile travels into the gallbladder where it awaits a signal from the intestines that food is present. Bile has two main purposes. The first to help absorb the fat in the diet, and second, it carries waste from the liver that cannot go through the kidneys. So next, the pancreas. Among other functions, the pancreas is basically the chief factory for all the digestive enzymes. So these enzymes break down protein, fats and carbohydrates, and they are secreted into the first segment of the small intestine. The pancreas also makes insulin, which secreting it directly into the bloodstream, and insulin is the main hormone for metabolizing sugar. So it produces lipase here, as said, as well as the other two. But lipase is an enzyme found in the pancreas and small intestine, and it is used to convert lipids, which are fats, into fatty acids and glycerol. So they're just the enzyme that I've mentioned before. So protein, carbohydrates / amylase, and lipids. So next the small intestine. The small intestine is a 22-foot long muscular tube which is split into 3 sections that breaks down food using enzymes released by the pancreas and bile from the liver. Peristalsis is also at work here, moving the food through and mixing it with digestive secretions from the pancreas and liver. The first part is largely responsible for the continuous breaking down process, with the second and third part mainly responsible for the absorption of nutrients into the bloodstream. Contents of the small intestine start out semi-solid and end in a liquid form after passing through the organ. Water, bile, enzymes and mucus contribute to the change in consistency, and once the nutrients have been absorbed and the leftover food residue liquid has passed through the small intestine, it then moves on to the last intestine. So the duodenum is the first and shortest segment of the small intestine, and this receives partly digestive food, which is the chyme from the stomach, and then the cecum is the last part of the small intestine, and its job is to absorb fluids and salts that remain after the completion of intestinal digestion. So next goes to the large intestine. The large intestine is a 6-foot long muscular tube that connects the small intestine to the rectum. The large intestine is a highly specialised organ that is responsible for processing waste so that emptying the bowels is easy and convenient. So stool and waste left over in the digestive process is passed through the colon by means of peristalsis, first in liquid state and then ultimately in a solid form. So as stool passes through the large intestine, water is removed. It normally takes about 36 hours for the stool to get through the large intestine, and the stool itself is mostly food, debris and bacteria. These bacteria perform several useful functions, such as synthesizing various vitamins, processing waste products and food particles, and protecting against harmful bacteria. When the last section of the large intestine becomes full of stool or feces, it empties its contents into the rectum to begin the process of elimination. So the rectum is an 8-inch chamber that connects the colon to the anus. It receives stool from the large intestine and lets the person know that there is stool there to be evacuated, and holds the stool until evacuation happens. When anything comes into the rectum, sensors send a message to the brain, and then the brain decides if the rectal contents can be released or not. If they can, the sphincters relax and the rectum contracts, expelling its contents. If contents cannot be expelled, the sphincters contract and the rectum accommodates so that the sensation temporarily goes away. And then last is the anus, which is the last part of the digestive tract, and it is a 2-inch long canal consisting of the pelvic floor muscles and 2 anal sphincters, the internal and external. So it consists of the muscles that line the pelvis, so that's the pelvic floor muscles, and then the 2 other muscles called the anal sphincters, which are the internal and external. And that's it.